present. And let me know when you guys see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name's Peter Bartell, and you see Sean Stovall on screen as well. We're with Southern New Hampshire University in Career Services, and we have the Department of Veteran Affairs here to present Douglas Miller and Noel Burton. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Absolutely great to have you. I'm going to go through some quick housekeeping items here, and then we will transition to the stars of the show, Doug and Noel. So we will get started. Again, Veterans Benefits Administration. This is part of the .gov Federal Employment Virtual Career Fair. This is the 4:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time session. So thank you all for hopping in. And we'll go to the second slide here, accessibility statement. Individuals with accessibility needs requiring accommodations may reach out to the below. Online students at oac@snhu.edu or 866-305-9430. Campus students cac@snhu.edu or 603-644-3118. SNHU staff and faculty hr@snhu.edu. And a request for live captioning or live ASL interpreting requires at least 3 weeks advance notice. All right, final slide, and then I'm going to unshare, and Sean's putting the contact info in the chat as well. Thank you, Sean. But you can connect with us here in Career Services for anything career readiness related. So resume writing, interview tips, interview preparation, salary negotiation, job search strategies, COCE career@snhu.edu or 888-672-1458. You see our website there too, and our social media icons on the bottom. So all good stuff there. I'm going to stop sharing screen now, and we're going to give the floor to Doug and Noel. And by the way, Sean's going to gather them in the chat, and then at the end, we'll verbally address to Doug and Noel any questions you guys have throughout. So absolutely, like Sean said, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're from, their major, etc. But also, if you have any questions, your mics and cameras are disabled for this session, but you do have chat capability. The icon is in the top middle of the screen, that little bubble, if you need to see it. So Doug and Noel, thanks for joining us. I'll let you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Peter. So I am Douglas Miller, and I want to just thank Peter, thank Sean, thank Southern New Hampshire University for giving us this opportunity to talk about VBA and positions of VA. Before I go any further, for those student veterans out there, for those active military, active reservists, first and foremost, thank you. Bottom of our hearts, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done for this country. Thank you for what you continue to do. I'm Douglas Miller again, national recruiter, national recruitment team, and been in this role for about a year. And I am talking to you from my kitchen table in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm going to be presenting this slide deck, but I'm going to first turn it over to my colleague Noel to introduce himself before he's my driver for my presentation. Noel.
Thanks, Douglas. Hey, I echo those same sentiments. Thank you all for those who have served. Thank you for your service. We are really ecstatic to be here today, to be before you and tell you a little bit more about the Veterans Benefits Administration. As Douglas mentioned, my name is Noel Burton. I too am part of the national recruitment team for the Veterans Benefits Administration. I'm coming to you live and direct from my home in right outside Washington, D.C. in Prince George's County, Maryland. It's a very sunny day, very nice day outside. So we're happy to be here again. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you, Doug.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, let's hit it, Noel. Let's go to the next slide, please. We're going to jump right into this. All right, so here's our agenda. I'm going to quickly go through the mission of VA, some of the values behind I-CARE, which is what VA stands for, the PACT Act, mention some of the service lines of VBA, some of our mission critical positions that we're looking to fill as a result of that PACT Act. a very top-line overview, some of the benefits of federal government employment, and then we're going to get to your questions. And I definitely want to leave time for your questions. So next slide, Mr. Burton. All right. So here's the mission for the entire U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs: to fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for those who have served in our nation's military and for their families, caregivers, and survivors. This is, in my mind, a pretty darn powerful mission statement. It's pretty succinct, it's pretty clear, it's to the point, and truly, this mission is what guides Noel and my work every day, our colleagues' work. Everything we do is fully for that ultimate sort of veteran-centric purpose. Next slide. When we talk about VA, and I throw this slide in there because when we talk about the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, when we talk about VA, we're actually talking, there's 3 different administrations or organizations, as VA calls them. There's 3 different agencies that fall under, that make this umbrella organization called VA. And the center agency, the VHA, the Health Administration, that's the agency that 99.9% of people think of. When they think of VA, they think of VHA. They don't know it, but they're thinking of VHA because that's your medical clinics, your medical centers, it's your hospitals, right? And by far and away, they're the largest of the 3 agencies because there's over 400,000 people throughout the United States working for VHA. But that's only one administration. Then there's the second administration, the National Cemetery Administration, the NCA, right? And that's the administration that's honoring our fallen heroes and memorials and cemeteries and the like. And then on the left side, the third administration, that's where Noel and I come in. That's the Veterans Benefits Administration. So if you take away health and hospitals, cemeteries, everything else falls under the purview of the VBA, right? And so we're about 35,000 strong. And so 35,000 versus VHA of 400,000 plus, you can see, where VHA is, where the other 2 administrations. But I throw this slide in there just to give a very top line overview. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read through, especially in the interest of time, to get to your questions, but these core values of eye care, again, this is really what guides everything that VA does. We want to act with integrity. We want to be committed. We want to advocate for veterans. And again, as I said, be veteran-centric. To treat everybody with respect and with excellence and the highest quality, and to continuously learn and improve, again, for delivery of services for veterans and caregivers and survivors. So these eye care values are behind everything that we do. Next slide, sir. The PACT Act. So this is federal law signed by President Biden in the summer, in August of 2022. In a nutshell, if you're not familiar, PACT Act, single largest expansion of healthcare and benefits in VA's history. And what it says in a nutshell is that VA recognizes a whole host of about 25 different conditions, illnesses, diseases that have a presumptive cause that can be traced back to toxic gas exposure, to burn pits, to Agent Orange. And so with that acknowledgement, with that recognition, with the passage of this PACT Act into a law, veterans are now and have been eligible since about January of 2023 to submit claims where before the passage of this act, they were not eligible to submit claims for these presumptive conditions and illnesses, etc. And there has been an unbelievable thousands and thousands of veterans have taken the opportunity to submit new claims under the passage of the PACT Act. Next slide, Noel. I alluded to it before. The service lines of VBA, again, take away the healthcare, take away the hospitals, right? VBA, under its purview, the disability programs, the pension, the mortgage programs, the education, the transitioning from active military servicemen and women to the civilian sector, and all of those transitional programs, job training programs, vocational rehabilitation, the life insurance, all of the non-medical, non-clinical stuff falls to VBA. So those are our service lines. Next slide. So I talked about the passage of the PACT Act for the toxic gas exposure. So with that passage came a need for these mission critical positions. They are claims processing positions to meet the needs of all of these new claims of veterans under the PACT Act. The first position is an entry-level position. It's 100% remote. It's a legal administrative specialist position. And so this is that first line. It's a call center position. This is that first line where a veteran is calling or a caregiver, survivor is calling, and the legal administrative specialist is sort of fielding general inquiry questions, but is also explaining what is the process, how to submit a disability claim, what's the next step, all of that type of a thing. And there's extensive training given for this LAS position once you're onboarded. The next position is a VSR, a Veteran Service Representative position. And this is sort of the next growth position from the LAS to the VSR. The VSR, it's a hybrid position. So it's partly in the office of one of our 56 regional offices throughout the United States. So it's part office, 2 days, at least 2 days a week in the office, and then remote the other times. But this position, it's interviewing a veteran. It could be over the phone. It could be as we're doing now with a video conference. It could be in person, but it's conducting that interview. It's explaining in more detail what the process is, the different benefit programs, the criteria, what types of documents does that veteran, does he or she need to kind of get together? So it's that beginning to gather all of those documents and putting them all in the order and crossing the T's and dotting the I's and getting stuff entered into the system. Next slide. That position theoretically you can get promoted into the rating VSR, the rating Veteran Service Representative. And this is the supervisory level position for that previous VSR position. And so in this role, you're going to actually prepare the decision, the rating decision of that claim using the rating schedule. If there's any discrepancies or complexities, the RVSR is going to handle them. And then they're going to turn around and give their decision back to the VSR to then communicate with the veteran, the decision, and what the appeals process is for that veteran to be aware of. And again, as I just alluded to, these positions, that LAS, there are people that have started as an LAS. They do get promoted to that VSR. They then get promoted to this RVSR, and then they stay in this position, or they get promoted into sort of a division supervisory position, or they move laterally. So the point is, there is definitely promotion potential. Not a guarantee. You know, the different performance qualifications need to be met and everything. All those regulatory and performance requirements have to be fulfilled, but there definitely is proven track record of folks being promoted from one to the next and working their way up the GS ladder. Next slide, Noel, please. So this is my last substantive slide, and then we're going to hit Q&A. And this is just a very top line overview of just benefits of federal government employment overall, not specific to VBA, not specific to VA, right? This is just in totality for federal government service. So there's all of those tangible benefits of the health insurance, and the health insurance, and there's dental insurance and vision insurance you can get, and the life insurance, and if it's relevant, a flexible spending account for dependent care, for health care. Retirement benefits, I think, is, oh my goodness, it is an unbelievable benefit, because the federal, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds, and I'm not a retirement expert and a benefits expert, and I don't pretend to play one on TV. But the federal government retirement benefit, it's 3 prongs, it's 3 layers, so to speak. The first one, the first level is the federal employees retirement system. And this actually is analogous to sort of the olden days of an employer-sponsored pension plan. And I'm accentuating this because those pension plans don't exist anymore in the private sector. They're gone. But this is kind of the federal government's version of a pension plan, that FERS. And then there's the second layer, the second prong, which is the thrift savings plan. This is the federal government's version of the private corporate sector's 401k, or in the nonprofit space, the 403b. But the thrift savings plan, the federal government will match up to the first 5% that you put in. And you have a whole host of funds to choose from. And because the federal government, it's a payroll deduction, because this is the federal government, the fees, the monthly fees or the annual fee are minimal because of who the client is, i.e. the federal government. And then there's obviously the Social Security as the third prong of the retirement. So the retirement benefits is unbelievable benefit to working for the federal government. And then there's also a whole host, as the list shows you, of the observed holidays, 13 different observed holidays. There's annual leave that you accrue. There's sick leave you accrue, of course, FMLA and leave sharing and court leave and this and that. So that's just a tip of the iceberg of some of the tangible benefits. And we're not even talking about the intangible benefit of working for VBA, of working for the mission of VA to serve veterans, to give back to veterans, and to say thank you for what they have done and served for our country. So that, as I said, takes me to the last slide of substance to show you. And so now, let's open it up for questions, Peter. Anything and everything. Let's go.
Thanks both. I'm gonna start with the last one submitted just because it pertains directly immediately. But Melissa Brees asked, what is the VISN position?
So the VISN?
Yes.
So Noel and I, we work for VBA. The VISNs, that's how the VHA, the VISNs are volunteer integrated service network. So that's how the VHA, that's how they organize themselves and structure themselves. So I want to say don't quote me on this, I want to say that VHA has broken out throughout the United States into about 20 or 21 or 22 VISNs. So for example, I'm speaking to you from New York City. New York City belongs to VISN 2, right? So those are really how the VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, characterizes, and organizes their positions. So that's the best that I can speak to that question.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it. The next one was remote positions. Are there any remote positions?
Yeah, so that legal administrative specialist position that I alluded to, that's the call center. That's that first line engagement with a veteran when he or she wants to learn about how to file a disability claim. That is a 100% remote position. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Anna. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, as a part of that, we had several folks ask about entry-level positions. Are the entry-level positions available?
Yeah, I mean, so Noel, I'm sure Noel has already, if you haven't, Noel, can drop in the chat the URL to the careers at VBA,
Yeah.
right? And so from there, it will link you to USA Jobs for any of the entry, for all positions, right? But the LAS, for example, it starts at a GS5. That's considered an entry-level position. Different offices, since Noel and I don't do the posting of these job opportunity announcements, there could be other entry-level positions at a specific regional office, because VBA has 56 different regional offices throughout the United States. So there could be an entry-level position, there could be mid-level positions posted by one of these specific regional offices. So you just need to, go onto USA Jobs, set up a daily job alert so that you get all of these alerts about these jobs when they get posted. And the last thing I'll say is about entry level, but about everything. Keep in mind, everybody, that especially depending on the level of the position, you need to read the job opportunity announcement. That's the job description that's on USA Jobs, right? That's the fancy jargon, JOA, job opportunity announcement for the job description. You need to read closely the qualifications, because it might be you need XYZ experience, or in lieu of the experience, a bachelor's degree, or a combination of the two. You got to read it really slowly and carefully, because especially at some of the more entry-ish level positions of like a GS5, a GS6, a GS7, especially at that lower level, you will see more often than not, you can qualify with experience, or if you don't have it, by virtue of just a degree in anything, you could qualify and be eligible. You know what I mean? Or a combination of experience plus the education. As we tend to get higher in the GS level, right? As we start to get into the GS, the GS11s, the GS12, the GS13, you're not going to be able to substitute education for the experience, because now you're starting to talk about a mid-level, seniorish mid-level position. You need to have the experience. But at some of those more entry-level positions, you could qualify, as I say, vis-a-vis just a degree, or maybe the experience or combination. So you really got to read that carefully.
In the same, I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
No, I was looking at the questions along the same line of, applying for roles, but specifically someone asked available like operations management, supply logistics, and also we have a question about social media jobs as well.
Again, Noel and I, we don't post the announcements, so we honestly don't have full disclosure. We don't have our finger on the pulse every single day as to what's out there or when something is going to be posted. You know what I mean? We don't get a calendar in advance that says, oh, there's going to be a social media manager posted in 2 weeks' time. We have no idea, which is why, if I haven't said it in this session, I can't underscore enough. Set up daily job alerts, set them up and make them broad so that you don't lose out when something is posted. And while you're waiting for something, get your federal resume queued up, get it ready to rock and roll. Use the resume builder tool on USA Jobs to create your federal resume, because your federal resume is the key to your application.
And if I may unmute, reach out as well. In addition to that, I love the resume tool for especially coming directly through you all. Our career team at SNHU here, Sean put the contact info in the chat. We assist with things like that, including federal resumes, veterans, active duty, military spouses, etc. to assist with those types of things too, because Doug did mention in the last session as well, it can be challenging, right? If you're going from military to civilian resumes, and we're here to assist with that in addition to the tool that they have. So you have the full belt. There's another question about Brandy Hearn was wondering what positions would be available for a degree in psychology with a concentration in forensics.
That's a good one.
So again, as I just mentioned, there are certain, a VSR, there are certain positions where they're not looking for a specific degree in X, Y, or Z, just a degree, period, in lieu of that experience. So again, it depends on what that specific position is. If we start to talk about, for example, we didn't really get into it. Noel and I, we also recruit, for a vocational rehabilitation counselor position. But that's a very niche specific role where you have to have a master's in clinical counseling, in social work, in rehabilitation counseling. Then we're starting to talk about you need that degree. It has to be a master's. You need X number of hours in an internship. Now we're talking really hardcore stuff and very niche specific stuff. Take that off the table, though. Depending on what that job description is, they're not going to be, for the most part, you got to have a master, you got to have a bachelor's in psychology or a bachelor's in, what I mean? It doesn't matter. Yeah.
So I just dropped something in the chat real quick. VA does have a big VA does have what we call a technical career field trainee program. And a lot of the different fields that you all have been asking about, from IT to, biomedical engineering to boiler plant operations, to contracting, to finance, to the environmental engineering and protection, just about everything outside of like a lot of the things that we do at VBA. And you can basically get into this trainee program, get your foot in the door. It's not guaranteed that you're going to get a job once you go through the trainee program, but you can go through this program, and it does bode well for you with your skills and things that you have learned to be able to move on and be more able to move into future positions. So I think it's worth looking into if you're interested in some of those other fields. It says the link doesn't work when you click on it. Works on my side. I'm not sure which browser you're using. Try a different browser. But yeah, it's called the
Wendy,
TCF.
If you have issues, Wendy, email that COCE career email. But try different browsers, like Noel said. Sean, were you gonna say something? Okay.
Yeah, Peter, if I could just jump in for a second, because I saw Wendy's question and it's so crucial, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned it, Peter. I mean, so real important for the veterans out there and military folk. Work with your counselors, right, to sort of get those skills transferred into the civilian sector. You know what I mean? And I don't want to, we can have a philosophical, which we're not going to, we can have a philosophical conversation, because I've been reading some things lately on LinkedIn, like, well, why should I, from the military veteran point of view, why should I be forced to sort of translate my military stuff and my military experience and skills into civilian jargon? Like, you civilian side, you should get with it and kind of figure it out. Like, I'm not going to go down that road, and there is maybe some validity to that. But all I'm going to say is, if you're a veteran out there and a military, work with your counselors, number one, to get certain experiences and skills kind of like transferable, so it is understandable for an HR specialist reading it, because he or she might not, is not going to understand it, and they might need to, get it sort of distilled into, terminology or experience or, knowledge, skills, ability that they're going to be able to understand. That's number one that I just want to throw out there, Peter, because just to reiterate, and kind of echo what you had said. But number two, to directly follow up on Wendy and other people, if Wendy's still there, what can you do to stand out? You got to read that JOA and you got to look at the specialized experience of that JOA on USA Jobs. Look at that job description and make sure that if you have, and I'm not advocating lie and make stuff up because then you're going to get busted and not a good thing. But if you have that experience, make sure that you are directly addressing each of the points on the specialized experience of the job description. Don't leave room for any type of inference from an HR specialist. They are reading thousands. They're going through. Don't leave room for them to even ponder. What do you mean? I don't understand that acronym. To any way, hem or haw. Make it clear, make it specific, make it aligned to that specialized experience. And if that means, as long as you have it, again, I'm not saying lie. If that means taking verbatim some of those phrases of specialized experience from the job description and putting it into your resume, then do it. Right? You might not do that in the private sector resume, but you can do it here because the HR specialists, they're looking for certain key phrases. They're looking for certain key experiences, for certain skill sets, right? So don't think, oh, I've got to reword it so they don't see the same thing. No, I'm telling you to say the same thing as long as you have it. So that's how you're going to stand out. Put the effort into this federal resume. Use that resume builder tool. 1,000%. You don't have a page limit like in the private sector of 1 to 2 pages.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Both. We'll conclude this session. We're at time here, but appreciate everybody hopping on. Sean gave you the resources in the chat. Denise put a few in there too. Thank you. So Doug and Noel, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll talk to everybody later. And these sessions were recorded, FYI, so they will be available for students. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Southern New
Have a great
Hampshire.
day.